into perspective, really. There really has been an explosion in drone use across the world. And focusing on the use, an example here is over in Belgium. Last year, there were over 30,000 drone flights that were detected. So this is using detection equipment around Belgian airports. That's a fairly small part of the national airspace, and yet there were still 30,000 flights there. So you can extrapolate that across a nation and work out that actually there are huge amounts of drones being flown. Sometimes very short durations, sometimes longer durations, but fundamentally there are a lot of drone flights that are going on out there. In terms of the use cases I mentioned, I touched upon before, many use cases. Some of them are for safety of life reasons, such as search and rescue, for instance, helping with accident investigations. There are lots of use cases that involve the sensors on board the drones. Typically, we're talking about cameras here, so a lot of photography type use cases, but increasingly we're seeing slightly larger drones coming to the fore, which have carrying capability, so they can do transportation, either again of medical devices, so life-saving devices and medicines, but also of just general cargo as well. And those cargoes can be typically a couple of kilograms or a couple of pounds, all the way up to hundreds of kilos now. So in terms of the airspace availability, airspace has been enjoyed by crewed aircraft for many, many years, of course, and now uncrewed aircraft are looking to share some of that airspace as well. In many jurisdictions across the world, drones are restricted to 400 feet or 120 meters, and that is keeping drones and crewed aircraft to a large part separate. However, not in all cases. As we go forward with the expanding use cases of drones and they become more and more capable, then integrating those drone flights into non-segregated airspace where crewed aviation is also going to be operating becomes more and more important. And frameworks, the regulatory frameworks, are being developed across the world to enable that. On to the next slide, please. Thank you. So I've mentioned the huge amount of drones that are out there. So how does that really translate into what we're seeing at airports? So the number of drones that were sold last year and the projected growth is that the numbers are huge. I mean, you can see there. But what that translates to airports is we're also seeing a significant growth in the drone use around airports specifically. So as it says here, 15% roughly is the increase year on year that we've seen in the UK for pretty much the last decade. Is a pretty stable growth of drones around airports, and these are the authorized drones, just to be clear. So drones that are requested to fly in and around the airports in the UK and have been given authority to do so. The UK figures I've just described, I think, are quite easily translatable across other countries. Speaking to colleagues from other countries doing similar things, we seem to be approaching a similar figure of growth. So your country may be seeing similar kind of growth. I mentioned that the figures were around authorized drones. Well, actually, there are quite a lot of drones out there that are being flown without authorization around airports, sadly. However, and this is a really key point here, many of those drones, even without authorization, do not constitute a safety issue. Of course, some do, and that's really the focus of this. But it's important to know that not every drone that is flown constitutes a safety issue. So how do we know this? Well, we know that there are an increasing number of drone detection capabilities that are being installed at airports around the world. Those drone detection capabilities give us an insight into the drone use in and around airports. We also use drone sighting reports where members of the public or security guards at airports report that they've seen a drone. However, it's safe to say that some of these reports may or may not be drones. It's hard sometimes to identify a drone. They're quite small, and on occasion, some of those drone sighting reports have been discredited. So there's a bit of a debate sometimes about the veracity of drone sightings, which is why drone detections and drone detection equipment are becoming more and more relied upon to provide the objective evidence we need to look at the risk. Next slide, please. Thank you. So that's just a bit of context around drone use. Now I'm going to go and focus in on some of those impacts that have occurred recently around the world. On to the next slide, please. Thank you. So here's just a few snippets, bits of information, bits of news of recent, so this month, drone incursions that have happened in Europe, and this one specifically is in Belgium. This interruption, this incident went on for several days. It started on the 4th of November 2025, and it expanded to beyond just a single airport and included some military air bases as well. This is becoming more and more typical, where a drone incident is declared. Often it either goes on for a period of days, off and on, as drones get sighted, but also it also changes location as well, perhaps locally, perhaps nationally. And just as an example of this particular event, the UK, supporting our Belgian friends, provided a military response drone detection equipment to Belgium. And this illustrates quite how this is considered to be an international issue now. This is not just isolated with one country or a couple of countries. This is becoming more and more an international issue with an international response. And it's not just limited to airports as well. So I mentioned the military bases for this particular stream of events here, but then recently 3 drones have been sighted over a nuclear power plant in Belgium as well. On to the next slide, please. And just by way of a bit of evidence here, we're not just talking about Belgium, we're not just talking about one country. Over in Denmark, in Norway, and in Germany recently, there have been similar kind of events that have been taking place over the last 2 or 3 months. Next slide, please. And then final slide of news snippets. This is just to illustrate what's going on and perhaps a pointer to where the threat is coming from. This is by no means any evidence to support this, but this is what is being postulated by particularly the media. So there are many drones that are being used in the Ukraine conflict, of course, and there is some drones that are extending out from Ukraine, and they've been intercepted and found in Poland. But there have also been a spate of sightings beyond the Polish-Ukrainian border as well. So this risk is happening across Europe. It's not just isolated to the war zone over in Ukraine. And just to highlight, I guess, how this is now being seen, recently the head of the UK Civil Aviation, the UK Civil Aviation Authority said earlier this week, in his mind, it is entirely unreasonable to think that drone incursions won't cause disruption in the future. It's not a question of if, only of when. So, you know, this is something that is now being understood and accepted at the highest level in government, certainly in the UK. Next slide, please. So I painted a picture. That's that's the news that I think we've all seen in the press to a certain extent. What I'm going to do now is to step you through how we can actually improve the management of those kind of events. So this is the drone incident management part. Next slide, please. Thank you. So by way of introducing this, I'd like to start with the DINOS working group, the Drone Impact on Network Operational Safety working group. This is a Eurocontrol setup working group that's been going for, I think, around about 5 years now. We have a growing number of expert members and organizations that comprise this working group. And the focus of this working group is specifically to improve the response and reduce the impact of unauthorized drone activity around airports. And by doing things like sharing best practice and promoting drone detection capabilities and supporting improved reporting of drone events. The QR code on the right-hand side there will take you to a page which will introduce the DINOS group in a bit more detail and show you how to get further information should you need it. It's important to know that the working group comprises a wide range of stakeholders, not just a large number, but a wide range, all of whom are key stakeholders to effect an improvement in the drone response, but they're all interested parties as well. So if you are interested in knowing more about this, if you're interested in contributing to this as well, the next meeting occurs 22nd, 23rd of April in Bucharest, Romania next year. And if you'd like to join us on that, the contact details for the chair are available via the link in the QR code on the right-hand side. So what I'm going to go through now, some of it has been developed by this working group and indeed continues to be improved and built upon by this working group. Next slide, please. Okay, so the way in which we get towards an effective drone incident management program is a four-part pathway here. You will be on different parts, that you will have different maturity of your drone incident management, no doubt. So some of this may be something you're already doing, some of it may be something that you've not heard of before. So this is designed to be something that anybody and perhaps everybody could follow to effect a good drone incident management. So the first step is to essentially prepare, and then going through the risk assessment and threat assessment and working out what your response plan is going to be, practicing that response plan, and once you've had an incident, because inevitably, unfortunately, there will be an incident, how you respond to that, you learn from that, and then develop your solution even further. This is not a you do it once and then you're done. This is something that needs to be refined for your locality and needs to be refined for your budget, what equipment, what people and procedures you have in place, but improving all over time. Next slide, please. Thank you. So a key part, a key place to start for this is to conduct a threat and risk assessment. Fortunately, there is guidance out there on how to do this. EASA have produced the document on the left-hand side there, and again the QR code on the right-hand side will take you to that document. This is a comprehensive document, I think it's fair to say. It's a three-part document. The first part is freely available via the QR code, and really spells out what the challenges are with regards to unauthorized drones. There are two subsequent parts. There's a guidance and recommendations part and resources and practical tools part. These two parts are not freely available, but they are available on request by emailing the address below. And I believe if you are a organization that has an interest in managing drone incidents at aerodromes, then you will be provided with those documents. But that's down to EASA, who control the release of those two parts. This document is a a very comprehensive document, as I mentioned. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to step through some parts which, in some parts, summarize what's in that document, in other parts, build upon what's in that document. On to the next slide, please. Actually, before I start on this slide, I just want to explain why two of those parts are, the access is slightly more restricted, and that's because within those there are ways in which you conduct the threat assessment and the risk assessment that might be useful to people who perhaps want to exploit those, hence that the access is somewhat restricted. But I'm guessing from the people who are on this call, you will be interested, and indeed those documents will be available to you. So once you have started down the route of doing your risk assessment, then one of the things that you should do is know what actually is going on in your airspace. So what are the drones that are being flown around there? Where are they being flown? And so forth. To do that, really drone detection equipment is needed. But you don't necessarily need to have a permanent installation. And what's been going on in certain parts of Europe is to look at, on a temporary basis, what's been going on in airspace around airports. This is the Acute project, which has been run by Eurocontrol and has been done over a number of countries and cities across Europe to determine not just where drones are being flown, but also how close they're getting to crewed aircraft as well. This has been very useful in working out what the risk assessment is of drones near certain airports in Europe. I think this sets a pattern for what other countries across the world could do in terms of working out what the risk is from drones coming into proximity with crewed aviation near airports. The QR code on the right-hand side and the link below both take you to the paper that's been published on the Acute project. More information is in that paper, including lots of stats on what has been discovered across Europe. So I implore you to do something similar to that to work out what the risk is around your airspace. Next slide, please. Thank you. So once you've assessed what the threats are and the risks are to your airspace from drones, then producing an incident response plan is the next step. Fortunately, the Dynos working group has produced a procedure for ANSPs, a good practice guide on how to deal with unauthorized drones. It's specifically aimed at ANSPs. It talks about the role of the ATCO in this scenario, what information to record, what to do in different drone states. So this is a concept that's introduced in the ARSA incident management document of having different drone states. So depending on where the drone is and what it appears to be doing will determine whether you're in a green, an amber, or a red drone state. And then this document, this procedure, this best practice guide, then tells you, or indeed proposes, what you can do in the green and the amber and the red scenarios, which is a proportionate response to drones. It's not just to close the airport as soon as you see or hear about one drone. It's to then conduct a step-by-step assessment to determine what the right response will be. This document, this good practice guide, also contains communication flow charts, so who to contact and when, depending on what has happened. This document has been built from the experience from the Dynos members and how they've changed their operations over the last few years, and we feel that it's a great place to start for any ANSP or any airport operator indeed that wants to start to look at their own drone response procedures and perhaps to harmonize those with other states as well. If you'd like to see a copy of this good practice guide, it's available from the Dynos chair. The email address is at the bottom of the slide there, and he will be more than happy to share this with you. On to the next slide, please. Thank you. Earlier I mentioned the need to practice. So the next step in the process is to practice your incident response plan. So the key part here is to make sure that you're prepared and that all the stakeholders involved are also prepared for what may be a drone incident at your airport. The Dynos group again has produced a template that you can use for your exercise. So when you're practicing with the other stakeholders, you can determine how each of the communication channels is working, for instance, and how you might then improve your local operating procedures should there be a unauthorized drone event for real. This template is available via the Dynos website, which was, I think, the first QR code on this presentation. So that's freely available. And a key point here is that don't just practice it once and then think you're done. I would suggest that this becomes a routine exercise to practice. And indeed, as the drone threat and your risk assessment evolves over time and drone use around your airport evolves over time, you can adapt and update your own response plan such that it meets the needs of the environment around you. And at this point, I'd like to hand over to Philip, please.
Thank you, Kevin. So hello, everybody from my side as well. I would like to take you now through the response solutions and resources section from an ANSP perspective during a drone incident. Next slide, please. So the four major tasks for an ANSP after a report about an unauthorized drone operation has been received are an initial drone incident reporting, communication and coordination, pilot support and flight adjustments, as well as regulatory reporting and closure. So regarding the incident reporting, of course, it is crucial to get as much information as possible. This might contain the time of the report, the time of the drone sighting, the concrete position, the altitude, the direction towards the drone is flying, the speed, and a further detailed description, if available, of the drone itself. This is crucial, of course, to ensure that regarding the second point, communication and coordination, that the needed information is available to be able to ensure situational awareness among all the stakeholders which are affected by a drone incident at the airport. This is also important, of course, to be able to provide pilot support or to instruct flight adjustments to ensure that if an unauthorized drone is reported at a certain area, depending on the situation and depending on the type of drone, this may not collide with an aircraft. And of course, to sum it up, it is important for your national occurrence database that all this information is then forwarded to this national database, that you have a complete picture about your drone incursions reported at the different aerodromes. Next slide, please. So I will take you now through the concrete ATC response sections. The very first one is that, and this is really a key point, that it is very important to define from an ANSP perspective, together with all of your stakeholders, the different threat zones and the different measures, depending on the threat zones to be taken based, for example, on existing guidance material, as Gavin mentioned before. I would really like to emphasize that together with all stakeholders, because that is really crucial and key to success. because this will avoid that you as an ANSP will expose yourself with the measures you are going to take. So if all the stakeholders, including the airport operator, including the major aircraft operator as well, and the ANSP define together which measures are to be taken depending on the concrete situation, depending on the location of the drone on the in the area of the airport. This will ensure that everybody is also aware of what to be expected if a situation like that really takes place. And if it is only the air navigation service provider who decides which measures are to be taken, again, the air navigation service provider, of course, in some way exposes himself, because at some point, if it's only the air navigation service provider who decides that if a drone is reported or detected in a certain area and he's going to suspend the operation, maybe at some point he might get sued for delay costs. And if the air navigation service provider only by himself decides that he will keep up the operation in a certain area where an unauthorized drone is detected or reported, and there is an impact, the air navigation service provider might be also confronted with some questions. So again, it is crucial to define these concrete measures together with all the stakeholders in order to ensure that there is a situational awareness among all the stakeholders depending on the different scenarios which might take place. And on the other hand, if that is done among different, not just among different aerodromes, but also among different countries in the same way, we can also ensure that we have a harmonized approach towards the different areas where a drone incursion event might take place. And speaking of Europe, this might ensure that an airline pilot may expect the same measures to be taken in regard to an unauthorized drone event in Zurich, as well as in Paris, as well as in London. So this is really important to have here a harmonized approach, well established and well coordinated between all the stakeholders. Next slide, please. This is to a drone incident flowchart, an example of a drone incident flowchart. This should just show you that this is really a complex scenario, a drone incident. It must be very clear who is going to take which decision, under which circumstances, and this drone incident flowchart can be used not just at the tabletop exercise to train on a drone incident situation, but of course it also has to be used if a drone incursion takes place. And this drone incident flowchart also shows you the flow of information during a drone incident event. So there is really a lot to be considered, and it is very good and crucial to be prepared for a drone incident event. Next slide, please. So regarding those three threat zones and those three drone incident statuses, there is a green status, there is an amber status, and a so-called red status. I will take you now through these three status to give you an idea of how this may look like. So the first status, the green status, this is a situation where a drone sighting is confirmed, but it is assessed as it is no impact to airport operations. So as Gavin mentioned before, there are a lot of drone incidents, but not all of them are, of course, safety critical. So you really have to differentiate, as mentioned before, based on the different threat zones, for example. And in the green status, we would have reported drone activity and unauthorized drone activity in an area which is supposed to be and is not going to have any impact on the airport operation. So what is expected from an ANSP if you have a green status, a drone incident? Of course, And this is one of the key tasks for an ANSP in general: ensure situational awareness. So make sure that information is given to all the stakeholders. This, of course, also includes pilots, but also adjacent ATC units, as well as other stakeholders like the airport itself. If the drone sighting, for example, has been reported by the pilot, so it is the air traffic controller who receives this report at first, and then he also has to ensure, the air traffic controller, that this information is forwarded to the airport operator as well. So there is an example which says that if something like that happens, you should put this information of the drone activity onto the ATIS, so that it is ensured that all the flying community is pretty aware of the situation of what is going on, and that you can fulfill your task of ensuring situational awareness among all the different stakeholders. Next slide, please. The second status is the amber status. This is a situation where a drone sighting is within the so-called aerodrome traffic zone, but currently outside the very critical areas of an airport, like the runway or the immediate surroundings, which are in most of the cases the concrete taxiways nearby the runway. So in a situation like that, of course, it depends how this situation is going to evolve. If it's outside the aerodrome traffic zone, there might also be a potential impact on arriving or departing traffic. So in a situation like that, it might be outside of the airport's perimeter, but still with the possibility to impact the operation. So in a situation like that, we call it the amber status. The air traffic controller, again, should pass all the traffic information, of course, to all the aircraft. Again, inform adjacent ATC units as well. But the ANSP may also consider other appropriate measures, like having an increased spacing between departures or arrivals, or to reduce the speed of arriving traffic, just to decrease the possible kinetic impact if a drone incident will turn into an impact between the drone and the aircraft. And of course, again, ensure that everybody is aware of the current situation, ensure a situational awareness again among all the stakeholders, and put this information onto the ATIS, for example, again. Next slide, please. So the last status we have is the red status. This is a situation where usually an unauthorized drone is reported and confirmed overhead the runway itself, or above the immediate surroundings, or in the direct arrival or departure sector. So that would be on short final or right after the end of the runway. So on the other side of the runway threshold. In a situation like that, of course, all the inbound aircraft should be sent around, so no more landings. The airport operation of at least this dedicated runway are suspended. That is also crucial. So if you have an airport with more than one runways, it might be useful, but you will, of course, define that again, as mentioned before, together with all your stakeholders when you assess the different scenarios, and when you define the different threat zones. It might be useful to have several red zones where the runway operation is suspended, so that you can ensure that if an unauthorized drone is operated overhead one runway, if you have another runway, maybe you can still keep up the operation there, depending, of course, on the concrete scenario. And again, inform every stakeholder as early as possible about the red status of regarding this scenario. So again, put this information onto the ATIS, coordinate with adjacent ATC units as well as other stakeholders like the airport operator or maybe the police as well. Next slide, please. And so, thank you. Over to you, Kevin.
Thanks, Philip. So we've looked at the process to get us to having a procedure in place, but there are a few more points that I'd like to make, particularly around the combination of authorization and detection. So if you want to know what it is you're dealing with, you need to understand what's going on in the skies above you. You can do that using information from a variety of sources. However, some of those sources, as I mentioned earlier with regards to drone sighting reports, can be a little bit questionable. They may be true, they may not be. It's really hard to validate. With drone detection systems, they tend to give you a much more easily validatable data set, so you can tell what is actually up there. But when you have drones flying around your aerodrome, it may be that they are authorized already. So tying those drone detection information with the drone authorization will give you a much better idea of a known picture of what's going on in your airspace. So which drones are approved, which are authorized, and those that aren't. Drone authorization goes one step further to the green light point there, and that is that drones aren't just unauthorized drones aren't just those that haven't had an authorization. It may be that they do have authorization, but actually they've exceeded that authorization. So the drone is no longer flying in conformance with its declared and approved flight constraints. It may be that that's a different time, for instance. So drone operators might think they've got an approval for the morning, and then they might be flying it in the afternoon, and actually their approval might not allow for that. So at that point, they wouldn't be authorized drones. Sometimes there might be a drone authorization for a certain time of day. If you don't know what that drone serial number is, if you like, if you can't detect that, then that drone might be flying, or it might be a different drone coincidentally flying at the same place in the same time as an approval. You don't know if it's actually approved or not. So integrating authorization and integrating detection information to give you this situational awareness will reduce the risk of unauthorized drones being in your airspace. One key benefit, another key benefit of detection is that knowing what's up there and being able to tie it to those authorized drones allows you to reopen if in the event of a drone incident that much quicker, because you can categorically say whether or not there is a drone up there, whether it is an approved drone or not. And as Philip has just been mentioning, the processes that you have in place will help you to categorize different kind of threats, different kind of risk assessments, and then to result in a proportionate response. But those threats, those risk assessments will change over time. So it is key to keep your processes, procedures, your CONOPS up to date to deal with changes in drone detection, drone authorization, and indeed the changing threat picture. On to the next slide, please. So to keep your processes and procedures updated, your CONOPS, this is something that is important to do with a wide set of stakeholders. We've mentioned that several times already in this webinar, but doing it unilaterally is not going to work. It has to be done with the other stakeholders in the airport environment. And indeed, what you might think is a static position, some of your other airport stakeholders might see a great deal of change. So a routine review of your CONOPS, your procedures, will ensure that you're on top of drone incident management. What is also key to know is something that you change with the drone authorization process So in other words, how you allow drones into your airspace might actually impact the management of drone incidents. So those two processes need to be closely managed. So a change to one needs to be assessed against the change to another. The second bullet point here relates to effectors. These are the systems to disable or to remove drones from your airspace. Now, I haven't put this in here for effect. This is because some states are starting to introduce these technologies to remove drones from their airspace. What is really important from an ANSP point of view is to understand what the effects and the collateral effects of these are. They're not benign. Some of these can have wide-ranging effects, whether it's GPS jamming, which can jam any GPS system that's going to be on your airport, or more kinetic effectors that, shotguns, that sort of thing. If you're using firearms in the airport environment, what sort of collateral damage could that have if it was used? Now, I'm not saying that I'm not saying that this is something that everybody needs to consider. Far from it. But if it is being considered, you need to look at the collateral effects on how you manage air traffic in your airport environment. And the last point here is around knowing what your stakeholders are, who they are, and exactly what their roles and responsibilities are, and making sure they understand your roles and responsibilities. One excellent way of making sure that people have a common understanding is by doing these practices, these exercises that we've mentioned already. So if you think that telling people what your roles and responsibilities are by sending them an email, actually that's not as effective as actually conducting the exercises with a combination of stakeholders, so that everyone can not just understand, but they can experience what the different roles and responsibilities are, and crucially, where there are some holes potentially in those roles and responsibilities. Next slide, please. So by way of a conclusion, if you're looking to have a drone incident management process, you will be at some point on the path to implementing it. This is just a 5-step reminder of how to do that. So first of all is to understand what the risk is around your particular site. What is going on with the authorized and unauthorized drones that are occurring there, using detection and so forth. Understanding exactly what the risk is. Where are they flying? When are they flying? What are the sort of behavioral patterns of those flights? Because the more information you have about drone detection information, the better you'll be informed with regards to what is actually happening out there, so that you can predict it for the future. An example that we've seen across a number of sites in Europe is, if you want to know where drones are being flown, if you find a tourist hotspot near your airport, maybe a city centre or a venue where tourists tend to go, or a beautiful park or something like that, that is where you will see a lot of drones being flown. Sometimes understanding those behaviours you can use to predict where drones are going to be flown. So once you've understood what the risk is, you start by setting up your drone incident management process itself, and the resources that we've already been through will help you to do that. Stand on the shoulders of giants, as they say. Take the good practice that existing drone incident management processes have developed and adapt them for your own site and your own needs. And then contribute to this wider community, including the Dynos working group that I've mentioned, or you may look to set up something of your own in your own part of the world, so that you can feed back those good practices, perhaps unique to your area. And then finally, make sure that as you continue to refine, you add in an authorization process for drones that are being flown legitimately within your airspace that you are effectively managing, and combine that with drone detection information, so that you can not only see the drones there, but verify that they are the drones that are authorized to be flying there. And with that, I'll hand back to you, Heather.
Wonderful, thank you, Gavin. All right, we have some questions that have come in through the chat while everybody was talking. Thank you so much for going to the next slide. So I'm going to start off with Gavin. We had a question that came in that said, who has the responsibility to equip the airport with drone detection systems? Is it the airport authorities, the ANSP, local police, or is this a shared responsibility?
Thanks, Heather. That's an excellent question and one that comes up time and time again. There isn't a simple answer that fits for everybody. I can tell you what happens in the UK. It's the airport operator's responsibility, but that's by no means the rule across the globe. I think the second part to that question is particularly interesting. Should it be a shared responsibility? My view is that a shared responsibility rarely works. Identifying which role you believe to be the responsible role for drone detection at your airport, and then that role should be the one that fulfills it. Otherwise, communication lines get blurred, responsibilities get blurred. So in short, you need to decide which role it's going to be, but make sure it is one role and not a shared role.
Awesome, thank you so much, Gavin. Philip, I was going to go to you next. And the question that came in was, what are the mitigation actions that can be taken by the civil aviation authorities towards this issue?
Sorry, can you ask the question again?
Sure. What are the mitigation actions, I'm assuming about drone incursions, that can be taken by the civil aviation authorities towards this issue?
Well, in regard to the Civil Aviation Authority, of course, it is crucial to set up the right framework to ensure a process we've just described. So there must be a clear dedication of the different tasks. So who's going to provide a UTM system if that is applicable in your country? What is whose task is it to react to unauthorized drone events? And this is really depending on the different national laws and the different local stakeholders' tasks and duties. But it is very important to have one centralized coordinative entity which is ensuring that not the work on the one hand is doubled, and on the other hand the responsibilities for the different stakeholders are pretty clear.
Great, thank you so much. So for either of you, we had a question come in, what unique, there's actually two questions that are similar. So I'm going to ask both of them and then we'll let either one of you jump in. What unique drone identifier do you recommend to use to make the mapping between an approved activity and a detected drone? So the flight controller number, serial number, other. The other question that came in was similar, and it asked, is there a reserved SSR code for drones such as like 7700, 7600? So I think it's a, you know, how do we identify the drones, and maybe not only when there's an emergency or when there's an incursion, but just to see the grand picture. So Gavin, you're shaking your head, so I'll let you go first.
Thanks, Heather. I'll take the first question there. So there isn't a single drone identifier standard across the globe. So again, it's not a simple answer. It's not it's a one-word answer to that question. However, I think there is a way around that, which is when a drone operator is applying to fly in a particular piece of airspace, if they can tell you what serial number they have and how to identify it, then that will enable you to then approve that drone and know that it's that drone that's flying. So yeah, there isn't a single technology out there. There are technologies out there that will do this. I mean, remote ID is one such, but there are others out there. Manufacturers have their own ways of identifying their drones, both electronically and and otherwise. So yeah, that's really the answer, I'm afraid. Until there is a single way of doing it, which may or may not happen, I think it's down to the applicant to fly in that piece of airspace to determine how they're going to be demonstrating their and broadcasting their identifier.
Awesome, thank you. Philip, do you want to add on to that?
Yeah, as Gavin just mentioned, there are solutions available. There are already drone detection service provider available. Of course, it depends really on the global situation, on which continent you are, if that is already available in your area. But the technical solutions of also cross-checking whether a detected drone is also the authorized drone or not, they are already available. But this really depends on the area of the world where you are acting. And regarding the dedicated transponder code, I have to say I'm not aware of a dedicated transponder code for drones. I guess if drones are equipped with transponders, at least identification will go through the mode 0 identification. But I'm not aware of a dedicated mode alpha or mode Charlie discrete code to identify a drone.
Wonderful, thank you so much. Okay, going on to, you mentioned the service providers, and we did have a question about economic solutions, particularly for smaller airports. This came in, I believe, from Africa. So the question was actually, how much is the drone detection system that can be used for smaller airports? So I wanted to give you two an opportunity to, Philip, to answer, what are the options economically? Because we've talked about who responsibility is to provide it and that sort of thing, but how does a small airport, for instance, go about starting up with, the actual technological solutions?
Yeah, thank you, Ada, for this question. I think that is a very important question because usually it starts with this question about the detection. But I really want to point out that you can start the work without any technical detection, without any technical implementation already. So please keep in mind that the drone detection system is one source of getting the information of an unauthorized drone operation, but it's the same source as you have a reported drone operation which is unauthorized, either coming from a pilot or from an air traffic controller or from an airport operator staff. So of course the drone detection enriches the picture, but regarding the proposed steps of defining the different threat zones, defining the concrete measures to be taken together with the stakeholders, the flow of information, the incident flow chart, all these can be done without any drone detection at all, also collecting all the reports, working on this. And then at some point, if you have all that established and you realize that the drone detection is crucial for your operation, you may add this drone detection to the whole system, but it does not start with the drone detection system, and unless you don't have one, you cannot do anything. But this may just enrich the complete picture, I would say.
Awesome, thank you. Gavin, did you want to add on to that at all? Because I have other questions.
Just to say that there are, Philip's absolutely right, of course. You don't need drone detection, but it does help. There are drone detection systems out there at various different price points, from really quite affordable to millions of pounds or dollars. So you really need to decide what you need, if anything, for your particular aerodrome. But different price point of drone detection systems have different capabilities. So really that's what you're going to be paying for. There are drone detection systems out there that are more effective than others. And there are, not for this call, not for this webinar, but there are groups out there that will be able to provide a lot more information about drone detection capabilities. So I suggest we perhaps park that as an answer. We can perhaps go back to the person who asked that with some more information, but it's not really, it's a huge topic and not really for today.
Whole nother webinar, sounds like. All right, so one of the other questions that just came in, seeing as the importance of involving various stakeholders, internal and external, and the importance of tabletop exercises, practicing roles and responsibilities in view of a crisis, who is best placed to manage the drone incident management process, safety operations, and others, or crises?
If I may start, from my point of view, again, this really depends on the local setup. This really depends on the local tasks you fulfill. There are areas where air navigation service providers are doing more than just providing ATC. Of course, it is very important that everybody is really aware of what his role is in this equation, I would say, because it is in a lot of drone incidents, the different stakeholders have got different interests in regard to the information. And it must be ensured that the right stakeholder gets the right information at the right time. So for example, the air navigation service provider, of course, is very interested into the position of the drone, whereas the position of the drone pilot might be of a certain interest for law enforcement. So there are different stakeholders with different tasks, and depending on their tasks, the right information should be forwarded. And it really depends on the local setup, on the formal duties of the different stakeholders who is orchestrating, I would say, the whole incident process.
Thanks, Philip. Okay, now we've got people talking because we've got questions coming in left and right. So on the next one, let's see. Here's one for you, Philip. What proportion of reported drone sightings can be considered confirmed incursions with validated evidence versus unverified alarms? What are the main barriers to confirmation?
That's a very good question. Of course, it really depends on the local infrastructure that you have. So if you have a drone detection system, of course, you have a broader picture compared to a scenario where you are only relying on drone sighting reports. So in your process, you can also differentiate between those different sources. So you can assess them to be a credible source or an uncredible source, really depending on your local assessment. Like if you get a report from a pilot, this report is assessed to be a credible source, whereas you get a telephone call from a third person who reports that a drone is somewhere. This might be considered initially during the drone incident, and there you are already in the drone incident flow chart as an uncredible source. And then the next step would be, of course, to verify this report.
Fantastic. So basically going back to the tools that we've provided so that people can step through it, correct?
Exactly. And regarding the amount of maybe also possible false alarms or alarms of unauthorized drones, which may not cause a concrete threat to aviation safety, there are also tools available which have got a risk-based algorithm integrated already. And in scenarios like that and installations like that, we've been able to reduce really the amount of drone alarms compared to the amount of detected unauthorized drones from 1,000 down to 2 or 3 concrete alarms. So this really ensures that you keep up your operation, but you get you put up the right measures at the right time.
Fantastic. So Gavin, we have one for you. In recent unauthorized drone incidents near airports or controlled airspace, how often do we move beyond sighting and reporting into operator identification and enforcement actions? Can you share recent examples, if permissible, where the operator was caught?
Sure. So this is an area that there is a lot of focus on at the moment, I think it's fair to say. There are a few examples of this having occurred already, but it's not quite as prevalent as you think it might be, but it will grow in terms of how often this occurs. So just to give you an example that is now in the public domain, over in Dublin recently, there's been publicity around a drone being flown within the airport airspace, and it turns out that the detection system they have there was able to identify the drone and the location, of course. The location was tied to a business, so the regulator was able to go to that business and ask them for information about their drone operations. Unfortunately, at that point, they didn't have everything in place that they needed to for their commercial drone operations. And rather than prosecute, the regulator decided to, in the interests of a just culture, to make the company aware of where they transgressed. Of course, the company then addressed that, and for this to be used as an example. So there are some examples, and even some in the public domain now. I see this becoming more and more prevalent, but there are quite a few things that need to be in place for it to be commonplace. Obviously, drone detection is part of that, but also the regulatory and legal frameworks that need to be in place to affect enforcement, which I think was the point in the question. So different countries will have different timelines on how they're implementing that enforcement piece. So I don't know about every country in the world, but I think to start with, it's going to be more a case of education and then moving into the enforcement piece.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. We're getting lots of questions and some clarifications. I'll go to this really quick while the presenters take a quick breath. A comment from an audience member. A comment for the speaker and audience regarding the dedicated SSR code. There's no such code for drone standard operations. Small drones in the open category shall not be assigned with a 24-bit address to use Mode S SSR transponder. Specifically, category of drones may only be assigned such a code if deemed necessary by the Civil Aviation Authority. Certified category shall be equipped. During the operation, the SSR code would be assigned as for other manned aircraft. The only discrete code is 7400 for contingency situations of lost C2 link of an RPAS, which is for generally the larger drones, and that is from ICAO Annex 6 and 4. So thank you very much, audience, for helping us with this. Let's see. The next question that I'm going to throw out. Is for either one of you, would you advise to have the detection and enforcement in one hand, or could it be separate parties?
I think you could have it in separate parties. It doesn't have to be in the same, because the enforcement is typically the police or the regulator. So detection may be the airport operator, it may be the ANSP. So I don't think they need to be one and the same entity, but crucially what they need to do is communicate with each other. So have an open data sharing agreement between the drone detection and the enforcement agency.
Okay.
There are also already existing implementation examples where drone detection service provider provides drone detection for law enforcement as well for other critical infrastructure like airport operators, and navigation service provider, or even power plant.
Okay, and I'm going to go back to one of the first ones that came in, because we want to make sure everybody understands that we are answering every question we possibly can. So we did some foundational work, but here's a real life example about 3 weeks ago, one of the personnel from an airport sought permission to do photographic activity, and that permission was given to do the work during the daytime. But later, the same personnel flew the drone at night with no permission, and when he was consulted, he denied not to be the one. Only after investigation, he was found to be the one, and he confessed. So bad enough it flew over a runway and taxiway without authorization of the air traffic controllers. How can such situations be dealt with, do you think?
So this plays nicely to the authorization combined with detection comment during the webinar. I think really that just answers the question, because you can determine when the drone is being flown, the serial number of the drone, or whatever identifier you choose to use, and then cross-check that against the authorization, and it becomes quite an easy task at that point, but only with those combination of information.
Yeah, if I may add to this point, maybe as a clarification for the audience, so drone detection systems which are available today are already capable of identifying the unique drone ID number without any transponder technology at all. So it is very easy to be able to identify that if the same drone is flown on different days or at different times, that this is going to be that was the same drone, and maybe as well the same drone pilot. But during the drone detection phase, also the position of the drone pilot is detected and is visible to the stakeholder whose task is it maybe, depending on the duty, of course, of the stakeholder, to reach out to the drone pilot.
Awesome. Okay, we're getting close to the end of our time, but I have a couple more questions, kind of going on the same vein of the detection. From the time of initial detection or report of a drone, what is a typical range for response action from detection, verification, mitigation, return to normal operations? Are there benchmark times or case studies that we can draw from? What is the general, from beginning to end, what we've seen as beginning to solution and back to normal operation?
Sure. Okay, I can start this one off. It's not an exact figure, and it will depend on a few things. So just taking the example of an airport where drone sighting has been made, there is no drone detection system there. So the next step would be to verify that drone sighting. So typically the airport security might be dispatched to the area where the drone was sighted to see if they could also confirm that there was a drone there. During this time, ATC will have been informed as well and will be taking appropriate steps. But in order to de-escalate the situation, you need to verify if there is a drone there or not. There may have been a drone there, it may have flown off. So by the time the security get there, which may take a few minutes, of course, depending on how big your airfield is, the drone may or may not be there. If it's not there, then, and this is in the best practice guidance document that we have, if you're unable now to see the drone, if there are no further drone sightings in effect, then it's recommended that a period of time, and the document uses half an hour, but that's flexible, you choose your own time, at which point you can say, we reasonably expect there to be no more drones flying in our airspace, so we can de-escalate the situation. So you get to choose that duration of time, but it depends on how quick your response is. With drone detection system as the other scenario, you can very quickly verify if there is or isn't a drone in that particular area. So you can say definitively, actually, we're de-escalating this right now because there is no drone being detected there. You may choose for to send a security detail over there just to double check. That's up to you. But with that drone detection, you're very much cutting down the time it takes to verify if there is a drone there. And of course, you can also then be checking that drone detection equipment to see if another drone or that drone, the same drone, goes up somewhere else. At which point you start the clock again to mitigate the drone being in your airspace.
So it kind of sounds like what we do with lightning strikes and events. When you have thunder in the area, you wait, and then you give it some time, and then once the thunder stops, then you can go, okay, play ball again, right? So we can kind of look at it the same way. That's awesome. Okay, thank you. All right, and let's see. One of the other questions that we had was about if someone wanted to get involved in the dyno's work, how can they go about doing so? We talked earlier that there's a meeting coming up in April. Is there a contact? Is it on one of the QR codes that we've had in the presentation about how they would get involved and who they would contact to do so?
Philip, would you like to answer that one?
I think you're unmuted now.
Sorry, I had again. Can you repeat the question, please?
Sure. If someone wanted to get involved in the dyno's work group, how would they go about doing that? Is the contact information for that on one of our slides?
Yes, there is a contact information. There's the email address of the Eurocontrol chair of this work group. You can reach out to him, and of course we are happy to welcome new members to this work group, since this work group is not just staffed with air navigation service provider representatives. So we have a lot of different industry partners cooperating and working together in this work group, and we're happy to welcome even more members, of course.
Great, thank you. And I have one more question that actually is my question, and you guys talked about the National Occurrence Database, and I was wondering, is that usually hosted in different countries by an ANSP, a regulator, or some other entity? I know here in the United States, the FAA has a drone a National Occurrence Database that they keep, but I was just wondering about other countries. Either of you.
I don't know enough about that to comment on what other countries do, if I'm honest, but I don't think there's a standardized way of doing it. I think that's the quick answer to that.
Is in your case, is the occurrence database held by your ANSP or by the regulator? Do you know?
So speaking as an ANSP, we hold our own occurrence database for drone incidents as part of our wider safety reporting tool. We know that the regulator in the UK also has their own. They don't necessarily, they're not the same. Of course, there are other ANSPs in the UK, for example, but I don't think it has to be like that. This is an emerging area, if I'm honest. The way that safety events are recorded is, broadly speaking, great for crewed aviation and not so great for uncrewed aviation and everything that goes with that. So there are work streams that are ongoing in the UK and elsewhere to look at how to better report and record occurrences, safety occurrences that involve drones.
Awesome, thank you.
For European air navigation service provider, of course, we also have our own internal occurrence database, but this database is connected to the national occurrence database where all the other aviation stakeholders also report, and so you get a complete national picture, and this national database is again connected to the European database where you have the European-wide picture.
Oh, fantastic. So it sounds like you guys are leading the way in trying to get that big picture for the whole country. That's awesome. Thank you. Okay, we have another comment that just came in. In Romania, we have a safety reporting tool, and Romatza, as an ANSP, has a database, but also the Romanian CAA does as well. So we've got some input from audience as well. Thank you so much. All right, well, we have about 10 minutes left, and so I think that we've covered a lot of questions, and thank you very much, gentlemen, for your great presentation and for all the insight that you've given us. It just sounds like, it's the typical safety approach. Do your gap analysis and then find out what your needs are, and then go ahead and put things in place, practice it to see if it actually works, and then keep going, right? It's kind of an iterative, for lack of a better term, safety management system type of process, right? We can apply that as well, and that's all part of it. So thank you so much, everybody, and I'd like to turn it back over to John to close us out.
As we come to the end of the session today, I want to sincerely say thank you to our presenters and the Dinos work group for their sharing their valuable insights and experiences and for all they've done. Thank you to the participants for your active engagements and thoughtful questions. As you can see, unauthorized drone activity continues to challenge the air navigation service providers and aviation stakeholders worldwide. But as we've seen today, collaboration, so talk to the other stakeholders at your airport and devise a plan. Preparedness, the tabletop exercises, and the information sharing. Talk to your neighbors and share information with what you've learned and see what they've learned are all powerful tools in strengthening our collective response. The best solutions often come from the exchange of real-world experience, and today's discussion is a great example of that in action. At CANSO, we remain committed to supporting our members through guidance, information sharing through webinars such as this, and shared best practices, ensuring that safety continues to evolve in step with technological changes. We encourage you to continue this dialogue within your organization and regions, and to share your feedback with us as we can keep in touch and build on these efforts. Once again, thank you for joining us and our commitment to aviation safety. Stay safe, stay connected, and we look forward to seeing you at another CANSO safety webinar or at our 2026 CANSO Global Safety Conference, which will be held in Jeddah, Saudi Arabia, March 29th through April 1st, kindly hosted by SANS. So you can book that through the link that you'll have from the website that our presenters will share with us. So again, thanks to everyone for this, and I appreciate it. Be safe.